Hello, I'm Bill Woodward, a shareholder with Elliott Davis. Welcome to today's operational discussion with Brent Emerson on quality systems transformation with a focus on manufacturing and distribution businesses. In prior sessions, we discussed topics including cost reduction, project management, revenue growth, IT strategy, operational performance improvement, supply chain, and strategic planning. All were very well done, and I'm sure you will enjoy today's discussion on quality systems transformation as well. As consumers, we all want quality when we buy, and we reward the companies that routinely deliver quality with repeat business. Both Brent and I routinely work with manufacturing and distribution businesses in our customer base, and today's discussion should be relevant, timely, and value-added. These are challenging times. Routines, processes, habits, and cultures have been disrupted, so it may take extra effort, extra intent to deliver quality. And this may be a great time to transform your quality systems if they have not been holding up in the current COVID-impacted environment. Brent Emerson leads our business optimization and project management practice. Brent, that's a long title. What does that mean that you do? How do you add value to our customers?
Well, Bill, I appreciate you framing it up that way and putting the pressure on me right out of the gate. To describe sort of my background and what I bring to the table, I came up through the ranks as a traditional engineer, and after nearly being outsourced a couple of times, I learned that it was absolutely critical for me to justify my existence through value engineering, whether it be to a single employer or now to the clients that I work for on behalf of Elliott Davis. So my goal as I come into a client is to help solve problems that they haven't been able to solve on their own, assist with rapid transformation in a way that they wouldn't be able to necessarily to do on their own, and to maximize their profits and reduce their costs.
That's great, Brent. So, Brent, how can quality systems impact business financials?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. There are a lot of ways that quality systems can sort of sneak up on a manufacturing company in terms of increasing costs and decreasing profits. And as we deal with manufacturing clients throughout the Southeast, we see some common themes related to quality. The first one is really related to over-inspection, particularly if we think about sort of the automotive sector that requires certification, third-party inspections, those type of things on their products when a complaint is issued. Those inspections have a tendency to compound over time and drive up the costs. Another cost driver are third-party inspections. If your manufacturing company is paying for a third party to inspect parts and certify parts on the shop floor of your customer, you're wasting money. A third is related to customer mandated costs. In many businesses, there are quality costs that are associated with customer mandates and customers wanting to get a high comfort level with the product you're putting out. And so there's additional layers of costs involved. Another big one is related to lost sales related to poor quality. And in many situations, we see companies that are reluctant to give one of their suppliers additional business because of quality concerns, particularly in the area of repeat customer complaints. Most customers are very lenient when it comes to a quality issue. If it happens one time, if the supplier makes every effort, does a good root cause analysis and comes up with the solution, and provides a level of confidence in both the countermeasure implementation and the audit that it will ultimately never happen again. But when issues recur, sales are lost. And then the final example, and I think a tangible example, and I think we'll show a graph that sort of illustrates this, is related to the cost of scrap. Many businesses have their scrap spiral out of control in efforts to get product out the door to service customers' needs. And so they ultimately sacrifice their own costs, their own profitability to drive throughput and customer satisfaction. So a good program to drive down scrap, and waste elimination in your facility is going to be absolutely critical to driving down the costs of quality.
Sure. Brent, I'm really glad you mentioned sales or revenue growth too, though, because I think even for me, sometimes when I think about quality systems, I think a lot about the cost impact of that. But I think it's really important to remember that growing the top line really is enhanced with quality as well. And again, like I noted earlier, I know in my own personal experience, when I buy from companies that deliver quality, I am willing to pay more for that value and definitely much more of a repeat customer. So glad you mentioned the sales side of that. How about streamlining and optimizing the quality function? How can M&D companies do that?
So the big paradigm shift around streamlining a quality function really boils down to a couple of key areas. The first is related to focusing on prevention versus detection. So many inspections. So many companies these days are inspecting the heck out of their products and looking at things 2 and 3 times after they come off of the production line. And the fact of the matter is the customer is not willing to pay more for a product to add all those inspection in. So at the end of the day, if you can adjust your business, right, and focus on prevention, identify root causes, and eliminate those root causes, you can reduce your overall costs and optimize your quality function. Another area that can streamline your quality function is creating a culture of asking why, right? And typically you have to ask why 4 or 5 times till you get to the root cause of a problem. And just creating that culture of working through 5 whys and asking whys when a quality issue arises is going to help streamline and improve your overall performance. The last approach or tool that I would like to talk about is leveraging something called the A3 problem solving methodology. And this is something that got its roots in sort of the Toyota manufacturing system and some of the world-class manufacturers, but ultimately leveraging a robust problem-solving methodology forces you to go through the framework that ultimately eliminates quality problems once and for all, right? And so it's gone are the days of, well, let's try this or let's try that, or I think it might be this. This approach and this process is based on facts and data and helps the team sort of iterate in on the true root causes of issues and eliminate things once and for all.
So, Brent, you mentioned culture, you mentioned process, and I kind of always in my mind kind of asked the question, what's more important, culture or process, or is it really a sort of a balanced blend of the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely opportunities and areas for improvement in both culture and process. Certainly, I kind of put the process first, right? Because if the process is set up for success and the culture is working the process, ultimately it will yield results, right? But I believe it's important to create a culture that identifies and eliminates unnecessary waste, right? And that will ultimately streamline your quality function and drive down costs. So I wish I could say there was one that was more important, but ultimately they're both major contributors to a robust quality system.
Sure, I bet they are. Do you see typical big mistakes that most manufacturers make related to quality systems?
Yeah, you know, one thing that's interesting about being a consultant is we'll come in contact with different manufacturing type companies, different industries, and everyone always thinks that their problem is unique or their symptom is unique. And the fact of the matter is we do see some consistent themes no matter where we go. And one is around the topic that you just highlighted, right? We see a quality mindset of, well, it's never going to change, or this is the way we've always done it, and helping coach companies through the transformation associated with no, you are an empowered employee, your opinion is valued, we are going to listen to your concerns and take steps to address your concerns, is absolutely critical into transforming that culture into a quality focused mindset. Another issue we see is waiting too long to address quality issues. And what I mean by that is I can think of a couple of situations where our clients were so focused on getting a product out the door and supplying a customer that a quality situation, whether it be a machine, a tool, a raw material supply chain, it just basically propagated to the point that solving the problem after a significant amount of time and after they waited so long was much more complicated and costly than they originally anticipated. Another common theme is not getting to the root cause of recurring quality issues. And there are a couple of things later in our discussion that I'll highlight. But when you see the same things over and over and over, it has huge impacts both on your internal customer as well as your client or your customer base outside the plant. Everyone knows when you're mixing labels and mixing parts and having things that recur, and that's a huge issue and something we see a lot of. Another big one is around sort of the quality function and how it reports up through the hierarchy of an organization. And it's very counterintuitive because it's logical to have a quality manager or quality director report to your plant manager. But the challenge that our clients run into when they do that is productivity and throughput is always going to come at the cost of quality. So a quality manager is not going to have the autonomy to say, hey, stop the line. We need to focus on the customer and fix this problem once and for all, when the plant manager is saying, get it out the door, get it out the door, get it out the door. And so having that reporting relationship creates sort of an immediate conflict out of the gate. And we see companies have more success with an internal quality reporting hierarchy that ultimately sort of segregates the interests of quality from the operations and throughput interests. Another issue we see is related to just giving quality a voice. A lot of companies will say that quality is empowered to stop a line or to take on a situation, but when the rubber meets the road, they always end up kind of pushing product out the door. And it's important to give quality a seat at the table. Yeah. And then the last example I'll give is around customer complaints. Many times we'll see situations with our clients where customer complaints will come in and they don't have a system to actively manage those and work the problems, and they build up over time. So the graph that I've illustrated here was a problem that we helped a client solve, but it shows sort of how bad it can get. This particular client had 80 active customer complaints at any one time. And when you've got that many problems you're trying to work and a customer is requesting a response on, very difficult to keep your head above water. And so we helped this client, build a management system and a process that ultimately enabled them to have a 24-hour reaction, a 48-hour reaction, and then a process to close each complaint within 14 days with an owner and an accountable party for each issue. And this is something that we see because folks just get caught up in the moment and they're trying to get product out the door and they're trying to help their customers, that if you don't have a process for this, it can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to something you said just a couple of minutes ago. I mean, we talked about culture, we talked about processes, but really with quality having that voice, some level of independence within the organization. We're also talking about structure and perhaps even governance supporting the quality efforts there.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do that for a company really is to seek out some sort of third-party certification. Like you always hear about ISO certification or TS certification. And if you go and you spend the time to obtain one of those certifications, one, it gives you immediate credibility in the marketplace and it can boost your sales. But then secondly, it sort of gives you that governing structure and those reporting relationships in a way that really sets the organization up for success.
Yeah. Again, you mentioned sales again, and I kind of like that topic. So quality and quality systems, and in a competitive marketplace, can that be a differentiator for a company?
Yeah, absolutely. One example that I can give is, recently we worked with a client that was reluctant, right, to have their sales team go out and push sales until they could really transform their quality system. And they knew that their sales proposition was not going to be strengthened until they could take care of some of the quality issues that they had. And so we spent about 6 months really transforming the quality system and managing the KPIs, ultimately driving down those scrap numbers, driving down the customer complaint numbers, closing out those customer complaints, driving to root causes. And we equipped the sales function, right, with the tools, the data, the management information to go out to market and say, we heard your voice, we've changed, and we're ready to take on more of your business. And a few examples of the types of things that were differentiators in that marketplace were some of these recurring issues that we frequently see: the mixed parts, the wrong labels, the mixed shipments, anything that causes a customer to receive a manufactured good and say, wait a second, this label doesn't match up with the product that I got, and spend a lot of time trying to figure all that out, immediately is a huge flag to really drive waste and just drive customer frustration. So those are some good examples where customers have or manufacturers have identified these issues and sort of taken care of the problems and ultimately reap the benefits on the sales side.
Yeah. I guess if I was in sales, it'd be nothing worse than what I was selling not being fulfilled on the back end with quality, with precision, with all that needs to happen just to support that function. So that sounds very important to the sales function. So when we talk about measuring quality, how would an organization go about measuring quality internally? You got to have a benchmark there to start with and improve upon, correct?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about measuring quality, right, a lot of organizations think of quality as a sunk cost on the P&L, right? We invest a certain amount in quality, and it's a certain percentage of sales or a certain percentage of revenue, and it's a sunk cost, and we don't want to get above a certain threshold. But good manufacturers have a quality metric known as the cost of poor quality. And within that, right, there are 3 or 4 subcomponents that have a number of individual costs, right? But what the cost of poor quality actually looks like is sort of the cost of external failures, and included in that would be like customer complaints, returns, RMAs, third-party inspections, credit memos, those kinds of things. Internal costs of quality, which are really scrap, right, and things that are going into the waste stream that can't be recycled or recovered. Then the appraisal costs, which is all of the labor costs associated with inspecting a product and sort of just certifying that raw materials are good, etc. And then finally, prevention, right? I mean, ultimately, you'd like to have a high dollar amount in the prevention area and low dollar amounts in all the other areas. But ultimately, if you sort of sum up those 4 buckets, you're looking at what really drives your cost of poor quality. And we help our clients sort of set up those metrics. Because, I mean, personally, I would say maybe 10 to 20% of the manufacturers I deal with look at their quality costs that way and the quality impacts on the business. But if you have the management information, it's not something that's too complicated to put together, but ultimately can be very impactful.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Brent, we're coming down to the end of our time for this discussion, but I suppose if someone wanted to have a deeper, more specific discussion with you, you'd be happy to do that. How could that get initiated?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll put our contact information for the management consulting team as sort of the final slide here on the video. And please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do to help you whatsoever.
Well, good. So there you have it, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this short discussion on quality systems transformation. And again, Brent would be more than happy to reach out to you or respond to you if you reach out to him and have a deeper dive with you. I'll also mention that on July 13th, our next session will be on managing a merger or acquisition. So on behalf of all of us here at Elliott Davis, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.